Well, hey, everybody, get ready for a new case on criminal motives behind the crime scene tape.
My name is Jay, and I co host this podcast with my dad. My dad and I have both worked in law enforcement, and we also specialize in security. Join us as we dive into some of these real life cases and find out what actually happens behind the scenes and what most people don't get to hear about.
It's going to be a good one, so let's jump right in. All right, well, another good case today that we're going to present to you. Thank you for all you do and all the support that you have given us and shown us, and all the word that you pass along to others. A special shout out again to our friends in the United Kingdom. Appreciate all the downloads that you guys are doing for us. And please be sure and leave us a comment, a like, touch, a hash, or whatever that there is left to do on your mobile device or computers. Let us know what you think. But we're going to jump right into a good one, and hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. So today, I'm actually recording at our my wife's office. That's where I'm at today. And so if you see me look in this direction, it's because I'm looking at my beautiful wife. She can be very distracting to me. She's not usually in the background of the show. And also, if you hear any like absurd cackling, it is probably because my wife finds us so hilarious and she'll be laughing hysterically at our jokes and the things we talk about. Let's see. I got my drink of choice today. It's going to be the Star Blast Bang,
Ah,
and it's not. We're not affiliated or sponsored by Bang yet. But why don't you go ahead and tell us what you got today? Tell me what you're going to talk about today.
we have a case that is very reminiscent of an old TV show that I used to watch when I was young called 21 Jump Street. They made a movie out of it, maybe made two movies. I don't know. Never saw the movies, but definitely a big fan of the TV show. And this one
Yeah,
centers around pulling off an investigation in a high school with an undercover agent. So,
nice.
yeah.
You never saw the movies, man? They brought Johnny Depp back for the movie.
What did he do? He'd be too old.
Dude, I don't want to ruin it for you, man. I don't
No.
want to ruin it for you because the movies were hilarious, but the show was really good too. And when you see them at the end, like the ones that watch the show, it's like, oh yes.
Mhm.
So they were in the movie towards the end. They kind of worked like essentially an undercover role, but I don't want to ruin it for you. I'll let
Okay.
you maybe one day watch it. So, all right, well, yeah, let's jump into it. Tell me what you got.
Okay. So, uh, you know that pretty much every case I can get my hands on that sounds outside the norm, I'm all over. And I love the most bizarre cases, the cases they say nobody can do, and the cases that are too hard and outside the ordinary and thinking out of the box. I think I probably created thinking out of the box. So I'm working one day in a city in the Midwest, and just joined, was enjoying the getting used to everything. And we had a situation in a small town where um, lots of complaints about drugs in the high school. Everybody has drugs in the high school, stuff going on in the high school. And granted, this was simpler times. We didn't have too many fears about active shooters, things of that nature, but simpler times, funner cases. And I met a person who was a detective at another department, and that dude was, and he was a young kid. I didn't know if he was on work release for the juvenile detention, or what he was doing. Was he sweeping up around the station, or what the deal was? And turned out he was just a full blown detective that just looked too young to be a detective. And
That's me without a beard for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure. I thought, why don't we give this a try? So I sat down with him and started talking, and and get a little bit of feel for the experience. I honestly, you can't judge a book by the cover. So I wanted to make sure that number one, it was going to be a good fit. Number two, he wasn't trying to prove himself to everybody else and was so professional, he made you just sick with reciting policies and procedures and things like that.
Oh, nerd, no.
I don't need that. I just need somebody with a level head that could do something like that. And when I presented it to him, you know, unbelievably had no idea what I was talking about. Never heard of the TV series 21 Jump Street from back in the day. Our good friend Johnny Depp, who's in the news right now, you know,
Yeah,
star
yeah,
of the show. It was a good show.
it was.
I had no shame in my game. I thought that was a great experience to bookmark. And when I became a detective, I knew one day I'd want to do that somehow. I knew I couldn't do it. Here's this kid. What do you say? Let's get it going. We had no other CIs available, no confidential informants, no criminal informants. Most criminal informants we knew had already been thrown out of school, so that wasn't going to work. So I looked at it and I thought, all right, we can't use juvenile confidential informants unless there's certain parameters. It's just kind of a waste. So why don't we go with this guy? It's too tough to do. There are certain things you can use juveniles for. I know alcohol beverage. We'll use juveniles to go in and buy liquor, underage liquor, and all that kind of stuff. But it's very controlled. It's hard to work.
Mm.
So chances are those kids don't go to the school you're looking to target anyway. Another problem. So we decided to go ahead and do it. And I wanted to meet with the chief. Obviously, he's the boss. He signs the checks and could rubber stamp this yes or no. And threw the idea at him. And he was thankfully somebody that thought like I did and said, let's give it a try. You know, it sounds kind of cool. And if it works, you're a hero. If it don't, you're a zero, that kind of thing. Don't blame it all on you. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's always a big struggle when you come up with an idea, come up with like a way to try and further a case or develop a case, and it seems a little risky. There's some risk involved, and so we got to get the approval of the head honcho or the in my case it would be a special agent in charge. We would have to get that approval, and sometimes it doesn't always go the way that you think it will go, and it really just depends on how that person in charge operates and thinks and likes to do things. So I've had some really conservative special agents in charge. They're the term for that is called a SAC.
Mm-hmm.
So the special agent in charge, the SAC that I've worked for before, was really conservative, didn't really want to do anything outside the ordinary, just wanted to stick with normal, like law enforcement, old school stuff. And then I've had some that are like, I tell him an idea and then he tries to throw in something crazy on top of it. He's like, yeah, that's cool. Let's throw in a helicopter. And I'm like, what? So it just depends, you know?
Yeah.
And presentation of your idea is huge because if it doesn't make sense and you're not confident in something, more than likely it's not going to go through. So you have to know it and be like fully behind it completely.
Well, we definitely had a good go with this. We knew we had to keep it contained. So um, obviously the assistant chief, which I'll call a half sack, he was not involved in the conversation, and we'll go with that. But it was myself, the chief of police, the principal of the high school, and the undercover. And the principal had to be brought in, and he was kind of a wild hair, and he was all for it. He wanted to make sure he liked the control piece where he would be the only one that knew, and it'd be like one of these secrets that he could look around in a regular teacher staff meeting and just with that grin on his face, like I know something y'all don't know, and he just kind of went with it. And I said, it's inherently important that this maintain confidential. so that we don't lose what we got going. It could be dangerous and all this. And he was good with that. He'd worked with us on several things before. He'd let us do some locker checks with a canine and things. So he knew what was up. He trusted me. The chief trusted me, and off we went. So we pulled an ops plan. We wanted to do. We wanted to have it in writing. What the daily activity looked like. We wanted to know what it was like to secure the evidence, where we would meet. We wanted to put together safe words that we could use during the day, and kind of put some meeting locations that were communicated for each day, and then um, for after the school day. A couple other things we had to go through, some of the rules and some limitations. How to manage the undercover's new friend list that he will get. High school kids are just, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but they're just stupid. The minute somebody new shows up, it's like tell them everything you know, and that's always evident by Facebook and social media. They don't care.
Just throw all their
So
secrets out there.
absolutely. So we
Hmm.
had to manage the friend list. We had to manage girlfriends. This kid doesn't matter if he, was really ugly, which he wasn't. Somebody's gonna want to buddy up to him. It's just a natural thing in high school. You got more hormones raging than you do at the Derby. So have to manage that stuff, and then you have to set down some ground rules. You are not to date these people like legitimately in real life. You can flirt with them at school. You cannot date them. You can't go. If we put something together that requires a delivery of some controlled substance and it has to be done after hours, that's something we can work on that we have to plan on. We would have time for that because everybody goes home after school and then blah, blah, blah. We'll meet up again later. We can fix it. But we had to make sure that there were rules for the undercover, the day to day challenges. We had to work at keeping teachers' suspicions down. We're talking about sticking this guy in the middle of a semester. What kind of story we're going to use?
Right.
We had to sit him down and say, "Look, no matter how bored you are, stay out of trouble. We don't need you going to suspension, detention, the principal's office, all these things. Not good for the investigation.
Right.
You have to make an effort to pass the class. If that means doing homework on your time, you got to do it. You cannot get thrown out. You can't be flunking classes. We didn't know how long it would last.
Right. You can skate by, like you can get the bare minimum grades, but you gotta get a grade.
I set the bar really low. If you do straight D's, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So please, can't afford these suspensions. We can't do anything that because of grades or conduct.
Yeah. Now, thinking about what you just, all those things you just said, well, of course, you know, I always say this on the show. You put an ops plan together and it rarely goes as planned. So I'm sure there were some hiccups and all that stuff that you just said, but just thinking real quick, if I had to come up with something like that real like on the spot, I would, I would say like he moved from somewhere else into that school in
Yep.
the middle of the semester. And then you create this thing saying he has a girlfriend from back home. So that way he has a legitimate reason to not date anybody, but he could still flirt and stuff like that. Like it wouldn't be a big deal. And then with the girlfriend cover, you could even potentially you as the investigator could be that girlfriend texting him like, hey, what are you doing, hey,
Uh,
what are you up to? And that's a way to keep communication without drawing any suspicion. I know I saw it on your face. I wasn't going for anything, I
yeah.
wasn't going for
Okay.
like you gotta start talking girly on the phone or anything.
You're right. And there were lots of things that I was nervous about.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure.
Again, it goes back to the guy. I worked a couple cases with him to see what his demeanor is like, but you don't know what he's going to act like when he's in that situation, and how loose he might become, and how cocky he might become. Look at
Yeah.
him. Look at me. I'm doing it. Boy, I can't wait till this is over. I can really brag, that kind of thing. I mean, I got all kinds of stuff going on in my head with this thing. So we also had to look at some things during the investigation, and some of these notes I can put together now based on it was past tense. And I can tell you some of the things we went through, and then I can tell you some of the things that didn't go as well as we wanted to. But
Sure.
during the investigation, we had to remember that even though he's over age, all the people he's dealing with, at least 90% of them is going to be underage. So be cautious of everything you do, say, all that kind of stuff. Treat everybody like it's your sister or your younger brother. And if you have any questions, it's best to just back out for fear that, hey, I'm new. I don't know you that well. I'm going to back off for right now. And then we'll talk about it later. But you had to be careful. And sure enough, some girl took a liking to him and stroked his ego. And he's like, yeah. Man, he's somebody he's pretending to be that she doesn't know about. I can get away with anything. I'm like, ooh, dude, seriously. Underage girl attracted to him. She also was one of the key deliverers of marijuana for the school.
Hmm.
And it was just natural for that girl to, want to hang out and have sex and do other things, part of the drug use. It was like, holy smoke. We had to cover, do you know how to simulate marijuana, in those days? Do you know how to do that? Can you do that? Can you do that and maintain your integrity? Can you leave the girl alone? Who knows what's going to happen? I got a good idea. So, we had to be careful with things like that, and they happened. But thankfully, and the only way I knew for sure, I mean, he could tell me all day, no, we didn't do nothing. We were good. The only way I knew was at the end of the investigation. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop for her to say, well, he coerced me to have sex, so I would give him dope, blah, blah, blah. None of that happened. Good to go. Got lucky. Real lucky.
Yes, good. Thank you for not ruining your career early, young
Yeah,
investigator.
exactly. And that's what I hung over his head. I said, you would be finished. You'll never work in this town again or any other town. They'll pull your standards. They'll, all kinds of stuff. You'll go to jail, different things. So
Yep.
um, we avoided some things. And, he tried to play it off as if, she's not that good looking. I'm not really that attracted to her in that way. I'm like, yeah, what way? That way that you're sober and you're hanging out and you're being a good person, or that way that you're, what they used to say, a 10 is a six pack and a four. Girl that's a four and a six pack of beer makes her a 10. I'm like, are we looking at that kind of thing?
Right.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So,
Under all circumstances, you cannot
yes,
do it.
yes.
Yeah.
Now, the good news was, which and in some ways is pretty sad in a way. We see this kind of thing all the time. But in this particular situation, the parents, while not really interacting with our undercover,
Yep.
was the provider of the dope for the kid. Now, yeah, we were really worried about that direction of which it was going. We were able to set up some undercover deliveries where the parents delivered to the girl who delivered to our undercover, and we were able to also send in some local informants into the house to buy directly from the parents. Now, whether the delivery made to the undercover was personal use stuff by the girl or stuff directly given from the parent to the girl, whole lots of cobwebs in that deal to try to unpack. And as with most cases, they turn into bigger cases when other lines are crossed and other detectives will need to get involved. We gathered the information. We had a specific meeting place after school each day, and we collected the evidence. We had it signed off, chain of custody, sealed, tested, obviously, and then stored for later prosecution as we continue to build the case. Um, some unplanned information that we uncovered while we were there. I got a I got a call to meet. I was working locally with another project within the school to give me a reason to be there. I wasn't the school resource officer at the time, and fortunately for us, that person was out on medical leave, so I didn't have to have any interference or include one more person that I didn't really want to tell was going on.
Right.
Well, I didn't trust them, but you know how it is. People get bragging, or maybe something gets overheard, and the investigation's compromised. So I was there on another occasion several times, and I had one of the ladies that taught English and had been teaching for 40 years, and my undercover was in his class. She knew me for, lots of reasons, and she said, "Listen here, I don't know if you know this or not, but we got a new student and he just rubs me the wrong way." I mean, she was on it. She was talking about our guy. He's so much smarter than the rest of these kids. I think there's something up with this guy. You might want to look into him. And I
Oh
was like,
boy.
yeah. So we able to last the end of the semester. So it went another 2.5 months.
Mhm.
At the end of the semester, we uncovered um, widespread cheating on exams and the stealing of information. Some of
Oh,
the contacts that our undercover made with people had all kinds of things, all kinds of hustles going on in that school. One of them was widespread cheating, the stealing of information, internet hacks, being able to hack into a teacher's thing and change grades, all kinds of electronic stuff. We also uncovered a situation where a female, not related to our case, was accepting money or drugs, whichever one you had, to undress in front of other students, boys and girls, in gym class. She would have them take turns meeting her into the locker, and she would dress and undress in front of them. They couldn't touch her, but they could watch her address and undress, for $5, or a nickel bag of weed, whatever you had, she would take it. And then another one, I guess a friend of hers who thought, well, this is lucrative, was doing it in the restroom in the regular school building part, not the gymnasium area. But she would come to school, and there would be communication, and guys would follow her into the restroom, and she would dress and undress in front of them, and they'd pay her money. So that was weird, unusual kind of thing. Parents aware and were facilitating the information. The ones that we found where they looked like they were partially involved, either through selling out of their own house or delivering to their kids, they were referred to family services. And then we also found a couple of stash lockers. Pretty big high school, small town. You get kids from all over the place.
mhm.
Uh, kind of a community high school. They had a stash locker in two different places of the building, where only a couple of people had the combination, and that's where a lot of dope, a lot of alcohol, and pills would be kept. And it was left there. Nobody. It wasn't an assigned locker. It was an empty locker that was
Yeah.
obtained after school started, a couple weeks into the school year. Nobody had it assigned. Put a lock on it. That became the stash locker. So quite the case. We made several delivery of controlled substance schools. We had other charges for use and possession at schools, and we were going to do forfeiture of delivery vehicles. If anybody showed up with weed and delivered to our guy, that vehicle was bookmarked, documented. And at the end of the case, we came up to the school with a bunch of records, and hauled them away for forfeiture proceedings. We kept none of them. The parents would come forward and pay the fines and so forth, and didn't want to pursue. Everybody had, they weren't worth going through the process of keeping them because everybody had liens on them anyway. So, had one case of weapons possession during the commission of a felony. Uh, Person had a huge, huge knife, and this is before open carry days, and especially for juveniles, that's a bad thing. We filed it anyway. So
Gotcha.
made quite a few cases. It worked out really well as far as the success goes. Our undercover was never compromised. He never broke the law with teenage. Yeah.
Good.
And yeah, the police department was hated for a little while after that because all the parents were like, "You did this to us." My kids. One kid's dad was a lawyer, a couple of medical professionals in there, and the rest of them just were like good hippie types. I don't know what they did. So
Okay.
unusual case.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, a lot of anxious moments.
I bet.
Kind of a wake me up for all the students at the school. Teachers were like, "How in the world did y'all pull that off without anybody knowing?" And the whole thing. So it was an interesting case. It was.
Yeah, for sure.
I was very proud of it, and I was proud that we pulled it off successfully.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. What ended up with the parents? What did they end up getting charged with?
the state attorney's office said it was just too vague. Um, the issue with the family services, you had a few visits. They were under investigation through the state, and once they figured out, okay, so maybe we can't catch them, we can't do anything. Kids are old enough, nobody's in harm's way. I'm sure that they put them on notice, and it was dropped. As far as criminal charges, it was just too vague. We couldn't prove possession at the time. It was just word of mouth. We couldn't get video where it was at. So I don't
Man.
think he can. I think it scared them a little bit more than anything. And,
Yeah. Sometimes, there I was just talking to a buddy of mine who's still in OSI about just this everybody kind of expects like jail time is the ultimate goal.
yeah,
And there's times where like just shaking people up and letting it be known that their actions are being watched, especially when they're not doing something legal. That is a good win for us. Another field that ideology is good for is terrorism. Like sometimes just busting up a plan or busting up like a cell of terrorists, whether it's domestic or international, just just breaking that group up is a huge win. Like there's no jail time associated, but we have thwarted their plans and really made a big difference and saved lives in retrospect. So
yeah,
I mean that's good. That sounds like a great case.
yeah. It was good. I enjoyed the fact that it was eye opening to the community, and for me personally, it's always fun to pull something off that you always wanted to do. If not you, then maybe somebody else.
Right.
It's just one of those unique cases that you reflect back on and enjoy the work you did. So yeah, good case.
Nice. Well, good. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Man, that's a good one, and glad to hear you pulled off something similar to 21 Jump Street.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Well, that's all we got, I think, unless you got anything else.
I think we mentioned it earlier in the thing that it was a simpler time back then, and
Yeah.
a lot of times I long for those simpler times where it'd be nice to just do a drug case, chase a bad guy, that kind of thing. And these active shooter things are just, horrible, and they're riddled through the news I think we should give a shout out to all the victims, law enforcement as well, that are handling these latest two in Buffalo, New York, and at the church in California.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely are extremely troubled by some of these active shooters that have been happening. It is just a heinous act. And I know the one in Buffalo was live streamed, so that's even it's even worse. Like, you're just putting your evil out there for the world to see. It's just horrible. Real quick, I'm going to go through the names of the deceased and the injured from Buffalo, because I feel like it's important to remember and honor our victims of these kinds of things. And we're not going to give any publicity to the one who caused this. So Aaron Salter was a security guard at the store who actually did take action and shot the shooter. Unfortunately, the shot went into armor and didn't have any effect. So Aaron Salter passed away. He was 55. He was a retired police officer for Buffalo as well. Ruth Whitfield, she passed away on Saturday as well. Pearlie Young, Catherine Massey, Deacon Hayward Patterson, Celestine Cheney. If I said your name wrong, I'm so sorry. Please know I have no bad intentions. Roberta Drury, Margus Morrison, Andre McNeil, Geraldine Talley, and then the ones that were injured, the ones that I have the name for is Zari Goodman, and that's it. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families, with the law enforcement, with everybody that was involved in that, because it affects a lot of people. And there was also a shooting in Laguna Woods, California, at a church there. As of this point, for the California shooting, the victim has not been identified yet, but still, regardless, our thoughts and prayers are out to the ones that have been killed, the ones that were injured, and all their families, all the police officers involved, all the medical team, just everybody that had to be involved in that. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and end this episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that can take the pain away.
No.
But eventually, you'll find a way to live with it. There's going to be nightmares, and every day when you wake up, it'll be the first thing you think of. Until one day it'll be the second, and you move forward. So just know that a lot of people are thinking and praying for you guys, and we sure hope for a change somewhere.
Yep. Yep. Thank you all for watching.
Well, there you go. Another great case in the books. Be sure and tune in next week when we unpack a new one, and I hope you have a good week.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you haven't already, go subscribe to our show. And if you liked it, maybe go get a buddy or two to go subscribe to it as well. Give us a like, a comment, a rating, whatever it is that you're watching this on, and make sure to give us some feedback, because we want to make sure that we're doing the absolute best we can for our audience. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Criminal Motives Behind the Crime Scene Tape.